Good morning, my beautiful intuitive butterflies, and welcome to Monday, August the 29th. What is for most Canadians and a lot of Americans, as well as other people around the world, the last Monday of summer. I know official summer doesn't end until mid-September, but for most people, this is kind of the end of the summer holidays. Some people have already headed back to school. And here we are. So I hope everyone has had a beautiful summer this year. I know that the weather was not what we are accustomed to in a lot of areas. It was drier and drought-like in some areas. There were floods in other areas. So my heart truly goes out to anyone who was affected by the crazy weather systems that are going on in the world right now. Because of certain regulations and so on. I won't get into details about my own thoughts about what's going on with the weather and so on, but I do really, really trust that we will make it through whatever is being thrown at us. So I just wanted to put that out there for everyone. All right, without any further ado, we are going to get started for our Monday readings. As this gets posted on several different platforms, I do want to just quickly introduce myself. My name is Marnie, and I am the Intuitive Butterfly. And my site is intuitivebutterfly.com. I am a psychic, a certified intuitive counselor, as well as a certified hypnotherapist. I received my qualifications in hypnotherapy over 20 years ago. So I have plenty of experience doing what it is that I do. I have an Intuitive Butterfly page active on Facebook, like I said, as well as my webpage, and I do take personal appointments for intuitive counseling, psychic readings. I do still do some hypnotherapy, although that's not really the focus of what I do anymore. I am also a certified past life regressionist. So if you're interested in that kind of work, please reach out to me, Marnie at intuitivebutterfly.com. Okay, without any further ado, let's get started today. So I have already lit a white candle for the day. We're going to use some white sage. We're going to light the white sage, and as we light the white sage, we're going to call in the 4 directions: the north, the south, the east, and the west. We're going to call in the 5 elements: earth, air, water, fire, and spirit. We're going to ask that the smoke cleanse and clear the electronics, the cards, myself, and all of you. Let's go forth with the intention of the cards that we pull today are in everybody's highest interest, that the guidance comes from Spirit, Creator, the universe, whatever name you choose to put on that source that is outside of ourselves, which helps to guide us. All right, I'm just going to move this smoky sage off to the side a little bit here, otherwise it affects the camera. All right, so for today, we have 3 decks of cards ready to go, and we have 3 crystals. So I'd like each of you to take a moment, go within, open or closed eyes, it's really up to you, and just relax, center yourself. Concentrate on my voice for just a moment. Ground yourself and visualize the energy of yourself connecting with Mother Earth. And then allow yourself to connect with the Creator or the Divine. Call in the angels, the ancestors, and the animals. Okay, so if you'd like to open your eyes now, see which one of these crystals or stones you are drawn to, and that will be the deck that we will do your reading this week. Again, this is a general reading, so take what resonates with you and discard what doesn't resonate with you. Also, because it's a general reading, even if you select one particular one, if you watch the whole video and the rest of them, you will find little tidbits that will resonate with you with some of the other cards that are pulled as well. Okay, so the first stone, I'm not sure if you can tell because the sunlight is kind of washing this out, and as well, it kind of matches my outfit. It is green fluorine or fluorite. Okay, so if you are drawn to this, then we'll be using deck number 1 to pull your cards this week for your guidance as well as your shadows. This second one is a piece of garnet. Garnet represents the month of January, and it can also represent abundance depending on your belief system. So if you are drawn to this nice little piece of garnet, then your cards will be coming from deck number 2. And last but certainly not least, we have a crystal point. So if you're drawn to the crystal point, then your card will be drawn from deck number 3. All right, without any further ado, let's move things off to the side and let's get started. So if you chose the green fluorite, now I'm not saying fluoride, I'm saying fluorite with a T. Okay, if you selected that stone, then this card, these cards are for you this week. So, all right, as you can see, there is a card that's poking me and it's sticking upright. So for those of you that selected this one, this week, your theme and your guidance is wind. Wind and movement. Okay, this is coming from, and let me just remind everyone that at this point in time, I have no affiliate links. I do not get paid for promoting any of the cards that I use. I just inform you what I use. So that's at this point in time. Ultimately, someday, maybe I'll put in affiliate links. I don't know. Anyway, so these cards for deck number 1, for those of you that selected the fluorite, are coming from Stephen D. Farmer's Messages from Spirit. Okay, spirits of nature. So wind is your card and your guidance this week. Wind represents movement, but it also represents air. So sometimes when we think of movement, we think of our feet grounding down into Mother Earth. There is the grounding movement right now called earthing. Walk around in your bare feet, remain connected. But for some people, that causes the energies to feel slow and heavy, and it can cause them to feel a little bit lethargic, especially people who are in the process of awakening their intuitive abilities, those who are trying to do more of that sort of spiritual kind of work, the work that is traditionally connected to the throat, the third eye, and the crown chakra. Connecting to the earth can feel heavy. So that's one kind of movement. But another kind of movement is being more like the wind, right? Connecting with the energy of air. So when you connect with the energy of air, how can you do that this week? You can do that by just recognizing and acknowledging the breezes and the air movements that are around you. If a thunderstorm blows through your area, for example, I'm not recommending being outside. Don't hide underneath a tree, obviously, if it's a thunderstorm. But you could stand on your doorstep for a few moments as the storm blows in and recognize and absorb the energy of the winds that come just before a storm. And then when the storm ends, you can go outside again and enjoy that sense and enjoy the air that's moving around you and see how those energies change. When we start to connect with the energies that are around us, we allow the three chakras, the three upper chakras, the throat, the third eye, and the crown, to open that much more because we're recognizing and acknowledging that which is unseen by these. So I really sense that those of you that selected the fluorine, you are being called upon this week to recognize and acknowledge the element of air. Also pay attention to birds. Birds and their feathers and so on are also representative of the element of air. But the other message that's on this card is movement. So we don't want to forget this week that movement is important. And there's different types of movement. There's physical exercise, obviously, yoga, jogging, Stairmaster, whatever the case may be. You are being called this week, if you selected this first deck, you're being called to ensure that there is enough movement in your physical body this week that helps to feed not just your body, but your mind and your soul as well. So remember, get up and move around. If you do have an office or a desk type job, remember every 15 or 20 minutes, stand up from your desk, move your body around. Remember that movement. And when you're doing so, do so consciously. Don't just blindly, my timer just went off. I have to get up from my desk. All right, I'll get up and move around. Don't do it unconsciously. Really consciously tap into your body the same way that you do if you do practice yoga. When you're practicing yoga, you are being called upon to get within the body and pay attention. Where is it pulling a little bit? Where could I go a little bit deeper? Pay attention to the movements all around you, the movements of the birds, the movements of the wind in the trees, the movements of your own body. Pay attention to all of that this week, especially like the message that's coming in for me really clear right now is that if your intention is to begin to awaken your intuitive abilities, your psychic abilities, if that's one of the reasons that you've come to this channel, then I'm really, really feeling like this card is a call upon you to really start paying attention to some of these other things that are around you. The shadow this week, which is the card that is on the bottom, there's your wind card. The shadow this week is the apple tree, the abundance card. Strangely, I know that this card came up a couple of weeks ago in the reading. And this morning, I chose this deck to pull my own cards for the week. And this card came up as my shadow this week as well. So really, really interesting when you've got this many cards in a deck. I can't remember how many cards are in this deck, but a lot of these decks have between 44 and 54 cards. When you have that many cards, it's really, really interesting when the same card comes out over and over again. It's generally an indication, yeah, there's 44 cards in this deck. So when this card comes out over and over again, and not only is this card coming out over and over again, this card is coming out in the same position, in the shadow position. What are the chances pretty slim, really pretty slim, which means that this is not just an individual theme right now. This is a collective theme for all of us. All of us are living in fear. We're living in that place of lack. We're living in that place of, oh my God, lack of abundance, lack of whatever it is that you're trying to draw in. Now, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. We all know about self-fulfilling prophecies. We all know about circles that just keep coming back around upon themselves. So this is your shadow this week for those of you that had pile number 1. But I'm going to really say that this is a card for everyone this week, given the frequency with which this card has come out recently. This is a card that really is going to resonate with everyone. Remember what I said at the beginning. Don't just watch which one you selected, because there are going to be other aspects that are going to resonate with everyone. And this card in particular is resonating with absolutely everyone right now. And coming up in the shadow position, it's something that all of us need to really work on. We need to start concentrating on and realizing how abundant and how generous the universe and Mother Earth are for all of us. We need to be practicing our gratitude every day, and we need to be recognizing and acknowledging the abundance. When we recognize and acknowledge abundance, we bring more of that into ourselves. So that's your work this week as your shadow, is make sure that you're not concentrating on the lack. Make sure that you're concentrating on the abundance. And the best way to concentrate on the abundance is to be grateful for everything you have every moment this week, including the rainstorms, for example, that I suggested when I was talking about feeling the wind and the difference of the wind before or after a storm, if you happen to be in an area that gets a storm this week, right? You're really going to want to tap into the difference in the subtleties and the changing energies. That's what air is about, is subtlety and changing energies, while at the same time making sure you're not living in that place of lack. Okay. So for those of you that chose deck number 1, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate you being here this week. All right, let's move on to those of you that selected deck number 2 and this nice little piece of garnet. Okay, we're going to set that down and move on to deck number 2. This week I am using Kyle Gray's Angels and Ancestors Oracle cards. All right, so for those that selected deck number 2, what is their guidance for this week? Oh, that card actually flipped right over. There we go. Oh my, talk about repetitive cards. I know this card came up last week in one of my readings, but here's the interesting thing. Last week, this card came up in the shadow position. This week, it's coming up as the guidance for this week. Trust your talents in changing times. Interesting. Interesting that this card has come up 2, maybe even 3 weeks in a row. The Spirit Fox. The Spirit Fox, we're not just talking about fox here, although I will get into the meaning of the animal fox in just a moment, but we're also talking about the Spirit Fox. So trust your talents in changing times. We all know that the earth is changing right now, not just as a result of human activity, but also because our sun is changing. Some people also believe that our pattern and the elliptical pattern that the earth has been in for many, many years is also changing and adjusting. Some people believe that the poles are shifting, that the North Pole and the South Pole are moving. I am not going to get into that here. I am not going to be controversial. I do have my own thoughts, but I'm going to keep them to myself because that's what I was guided to do. So, but I will say that the bottom line is that there is a lot that is changing right now. A lot's changing. Humanity is changing. Technology is changing. The way that humanity interacts with technology is changing. Like I said, the Earth is changing. Her magnetic poles are changing. The sun is changing. All of this is affecting us. So sometimes when there's huge change, we begin to doubt ourselves. We begin to believe that we're not good enough. Those childhood wounds that we have, that we inherited from teachers, parents, society as a whole, from church members, wherever that mud came from, that was slung at you as a child, wherever it stuck, when life becomes a little bit unbalanced or a little bit shaky because there's change, that mud that was slung comes out and we start to doubt ourselves. So for those of you that had chosen this deck this week, you're being called upon to really, really trust. I'm just looking something up really quick here. You're really being called upon to trust yourself, trust your intuitions, trust what's being shown to you, trust the vibrations and the energy. So I'm going to go back. Remember I said that different things will resonate from the different readings as well. For those of you that selected pile number 2 or deck number 2, pay attention to the subtleties. Pay attention to what's happening in the air and the wind around you. That will help you to trust in your talents, trust in what you have, trust in your innate abilities. And what you have is special. A lot of us do a lot of comparing. This is what's coming up for me right now. A lot of us do a lot of comparing ourselves to others. And when we do that, we devalue ourselves. If we're comparing ourselves to others with longing, saying, oh, they're better than us, oh, they have something that I don't have, you are devaluing yourself. And in so doing, you are no longer trusting yourself. But the bottom line is that you and only you have lived your life experiences. You and only you have the abilities that you have. So trust in those abilities. The other thing I was going to say, I said I was going to get into the meaning of the fox itself, not just the spirit fox, but the fox itself. And that is, in some of my other decks, animal decks, the fox is represented on the tarot card as the Fool. The Fool is the first card in the tarot deck. And that card represents fun, folly, forgetting about what other people think about you and just going ahead and following what's in your heart, following and trusting your instincts. That's what the fox represents in the general tarot and the animal tarot decks. I've got 3 different animal tarot decks, and the fox comes up as the Fool in all of them. And now you've got the fox here reminding you to trust. Okay. One of the images that's coming to mind, now I'm not recommending that anybody go out and do this by any means, but the image that's coming to mind to kind of drive this message home this week is someone doing a bungee jump. They trust They trust the people around them. They trust in their own abilities, and they trust that skinny little elastic. Okay? That's what you're being called upon this week, is to trust. All right, let's see what your shadow is this week. Shadow this week. The shaman, trust in higher forces. Go figure. So this card is your guidance for the week, asking you and reminding you to trust. Trust in your talents. And this card is saying, that's not what you're doing. You are not trusting in your higher forces. What are the chances, really? This card, you'll see that the shaman on this card has an owl, wings fully spread out, has an owl on his head. So the bird in this card is in the crown chakra, which is our higher learning. It's our access to the universe, creator, whatever name you choose to put on that energy that's out here that helps us and guides us, that energy that we can tap into. That's in the crown. What does the owl represent in the animal world? What are we all taught as children about the owl? We call the owl the wise old owl. Why do we call it the wise old owl? There's an awful lot of reasons why, but I'm not going to go into fairy tales here today. But what we do know is that if we are not trusting in ourselves, if we are not trusting in our connection to higher forces, if we're not trusting our intuition and our own innate abilities and talents, even with the world changing and swirling around us, then it's in our shadow. So this week, you're being called upon to really, really pay attention to that which is your higher forces. Pay attention to subtle energies around you as well. You know, typically, intuition, psychic revelations are subtle, right? They're going to come to you as the wind. They're not going to come to you as a lightning bolt. For anyone that knows me personally and knows what I went through almost exactly 7 years ago, I will be celebrating my anniversary next week. You'll know that when you start awakening, it's going to be subtle and it's going to be slow. And if you put that call out to the universe, that you want that lightning bolt to come and strike you, the ending and the outcome is probably not going to be what you expect. Right? That's part of the changing times. I'm just kind of hinting at it. And someday maybe I'll make a video about what happened and the reasons why it happened. But suffice it to say that I got impatient. I got tired with things being subtle instead of being that lightning bolt. And I asked for that lightning bolt and I got it. I got it in the form of an accident that almost killed me. So I'm going to leave that with you. I'm going to leave off and go on to deck number 3, but I do want to call upon each and every one of you, both for those who chose deck number 1 and deck number 2, definitely be paying attention to the wind and the subtle energies. Trust yourselves this week. Trust that you have innate, beautiful abilities. Trust yourself. That's your message for this week. That's your theme for this week. All right, moving on. To those of you that selected the quartz point crystal, I'll be pulling cards from the Diana Cooper Archangel Animal deck. And let's go. All right, for those that selected deck number 3, we need a card. There's guidance for the week, a theme for the week. That card just about bent backwards as it was coming out. So, the camel. Be forbearing and patient. Really? Really? Okay. So as I was leaving off from the reading for deck number 2, the message was also, pay attention to what's subtle and be patient. And then we pull a card that has the theme of be patient. What are the chances? I'm wondering if any of you have ever actually got on a camel and gone for a ride. They're quite a unique creature. I have gone on a camel at least twice when I was in Egypt a couple of years ago. They are very, very unique animals. They are treated as if they are stupid. They're not really stupid animals. In fact, they trust their innate abilities and their talents. And that's what's helped them to survive in the desert as long as they have. But that's kind of progressing here. Going forward, the camel is sometimes treated as a very dumb animal. Why? Because it's patient and slow moving. Why is it patient and slow moving? It's patient and slow moving because of the environment in which it inhabits. If you've ever been out in the desert, you know that moving quickly is just going to suck the life and the energy right out of you. So you don't move quickly. You move slowly and determinedly. Is that a word? I think I just made up a word. Okay. You move with purpose. So this week, those of you that selected deck number 3 and selected the crystal, the sun's come out and it's shining through the crystal now. You're really being called upon this week to be patient, yet be determined in where it is that you want to go, right? Kind of point your nose in that direction and just go. The other thing I will say is that unlike riding a lot of other animals that humans ride, horses, donkeys, in comparison to a camel ride, those feel like riding in a Cadillac. They really do. And riding a camel is like being in a jalopy going over a mud road that has ruts in it that have all dried up. I mean, with a horse, there's some kind of rhythm that you get into as you're riding a horse. Same with riding a donkey to a certain degree. With a camel, not so much. With a camel, it looks like they have some rhythm, but they really don't. When you're sitting on top of it, you have to be aware of what's going on around you, or you will just kind of slide off the camel. So where am I going with that for the message for you this week? And that is that part of the reason you're being called upon to be patient this week, those of you that selected this deck, is that things might not be that straight line that you're expecting. They might not be like this to get from point A to point B, to get from Monday to next Sunday. It's probably going to look more like this. And that's why you're going to need patience this week. What else can we say about the camel? Oh, that's the other thing that's coming up about the camel. Drink water. Make sure that you are consuming enough liquids. Now, when I say liquids, It doesn't necessarily have to be water, plain water. You can have some fun with it. Drink some soda, not soda with sugar and aspartame and caffeine. I'm talking about just a plain soda. This one's just bubbly water. It's the Kirkland. It's got some grapefruit flavor in it. Go and get yourself some club soda, put a squeeze of lime into it, put a squeeze of lemon into it. Even for that matter, squeeze some orange juice or some grapefruit juice into it. But whatever you do this week, make sure you are staying hydrated. That's a really important message when the camel comes up, when we're doing readings with the cards, with the animal cards specifically. Okay, so let's see what the shadow is for those of you that had deck number 3 this week. The shark, lead as a powerful, peaceful warrior. Right. This makes perfect sense. The reason that this makes perfect sense is that, like I said, the camel is somewhat slow and determined, and it is going to go like this. It's just going to go up and down, up and down. Now, that up and down is not going to be the way I just showed it, like this, where it's very rhythmic. It's going to go up, and then it's going to go down and up and down and up. And it's not going to be rhythmic and hypnotic almost, right? It's going to be a little bit more chaotic. Ultimately, the camel makes it from point A to point B, just as you will this week. But your patience needs to be brought into things, and you need to stay hydrated. And in the shadow position, lead as a powerful, peaceful warrior. Okay. So what can happen to us is that as things don't go from point A to point B in a straight line, we can become impatient. When we become impatient, are we being peaceful? No, not at all. Not at all. When we become impatient because things aren't going as planned, we can actually become quite aggressive. Not necessarily violent, but that is a possibility as well, but we can become aggressive. So that's your shadow this week, right? You are being called upon to stay peaceful, even when things get a little bit chaotic and crazy. The other thing is that the shark is a predator. It's a hunter. It's very determined in what it does. So that is another message for you this week, those of you that selected this crystal, that your shadow this week is perhaps you are not being as aggressive as you need to be, while at the same time being patient and peaceful. And you're going, wait, aggressive, patient, and peaceful. Those don't go together. Actually, they do. There is a way to be aggressive, but we like to use a different word. You can be very assertive. That's one of your shadows this week, is that you're not being aggressive or assertive enough, while at the same time still being peaceful and patient. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. It's a little bit of kind of that vicious circle that you have going on this week. And I think I had mentioned circles over here as well, and the possibility of vicious circles coming up for some of us this week. So yeah, for those of you that selected deck number 3 here, you do have a little bit of a bumpy week ahead of you. But so long as you continuously bring your patience into it, so long as you bring that air of being peaceful into it, while at the same time going after what you want, it's really, really going to smooth things out and calm things for you. So With that, I am going to sign off. This has been a longer video, I think, than what I usually make for our Monday readings. Again, my name is Marnie McBain. My YouTube is Marnie McBain. Intuitive Butterfly is my company name. And very soon I will be adding new content to my YouTube channel, including meditations and hypnotherapy sessions. So please join me for those. Watch the YouTube channel, subscribe so that you'll get notifications. And thank you so much for joining me each and every Monday morning. I really appreciate every one of you being here.